I want to give people a sense of what we're trying to accomplish today. We are hoping to be able to use this tribunal as a jumping off spot to be able to continue the fights that are being made and to build a national movement that can shut down public education now, make every school return to remote learning, make every student, teacher, school worker, parent, community member safe. We learned that if you want to actually organize people, it's absolutely essential to tell the truth and stand on the truth. And so today we'll have Neil Lyons present information that provides the truth on where we're at and what we need to do to stay safe. We began organizing around COVID-19 when it first started. And I want to say a little bit about what we did in Detroit because this school year, since Christmas, Detroit was the first and largest school district to cancel all in-school learning and go 100% to remote. And that is because of the campaign that we've been waging over the last several years. In 2020, when the summer school program began in Detroit public schools, after the schools had been made completely virtual for the end of the spring term of 2020, the school district announced that the summer schools would be in person. And we did two things. We organized to get people signed up to bring a lawsuit to try to prevent the summer school classes from going forward unless there was testing of students, of teachers, of anyone involved with the summer schools on a regular basis, and that we get a first round of that testing immediately. We won that lawsuit, but we never would have done it if it hadn't been for the fact that we were organizing pickets at school bus sites and at schools to try to stop students from going into summer school classes because we knew it wasn't safe. And I think this period really taught us something about how to organize and what is needed to fight and win. Because the very, very first day there was mass testing in Detroit public schools in the summer school, there were 2 or 3 students that came back positive. And the school district crowed about this and said, you know, we tested more than 100 students and only 2 or 3 came back positive. So it's safe. And the response of parents immediately was to pull their students out of summer school because it may seem okay to a school superintendent, a local politician, even a national politician right now, for that kind of ratio of students that are infected, known to be infected, existing in a school. Maybe all these politicians find it okay, but in Detroit, the parents and the students did not. And that summer school essentially was closed down. And I want to underscore here that I think that one of the most effective, if not the most effective way to get a school district to go to remote learning is for parents to refuse to send their children to school, students refuse to go to school, and keep demanding virtual learning, remote education for everyone. I saw today that in Los Angeles, 130,000 students did not report for school. And we know if that number grows, even if it stays as it is now for some period of time, LAUSD is going to have to offer a lot more virtual options for students. And if we can build on that momentum, we can get all of LAUSD to become virtual. I think the best way to describe what we saw from students and parents, which has continued in Detroit and which is what led the school district to feel in December after the Christmas break and after vowing to keep schools open no matter what, the school district knew that just the publicity that had gone out around Omicron and our BAMN's constant organizing to keep the schools shut down meant that it wasn't even worth trying to open the schools. If they wanted to have any kind of public education offering, they had to go completely remote. And that action that seems atomized and in many ways passive of not going to school if you're a student or if you're a parent, keeping your child home, I think is strike action. And it's strike action of parents and students of the most effective kind. And I would just say to every parent and every student who is staying home or being kept home right now, reach out to other students, to parents, to community members, to teachers, to whoever you have access to, and ask them to join the strike. Ask them to stay at home. Because while it's great that there's student walkouts taking place, it is really heartbreaking to see the videos that we saw at the beginning of this with students in the largest public school in the nation, an elite public school in New York, Brooklyn Tech, just wanting 2 weeks of remote learning, feeling that they couldn't skip school because they want to be college bound. They don't want anything on their record that might hurt their opportunities of being able to go to college, and just asking for 2 weeks of remote education right now so that they can continue to be educated safely, keep their family safe, keep their community safe. And those students, if there was a way to organize them and get Brooklyn Tech organized to stay home and stay out to join the strike, that would be fantastic. I promise you that the school district, New York School District, despite everything they're saying now, would transfer Brooklyn Tech and other schools to remote education if that kind of action took place. Well, we continued in Detroit organizing, and we continued getting out the truth. And as the virus progressed, what became clear was that there were just waves of lies that were coming out by scientists, by the CDC, by all kinds of people that we thought could be responsible and tell the truth about what to do to protect yourself and what to do to stop the spread of infection in this society. But all of a sudden, these people that had sworn themselves to be doctors, to stand on scientific truth, began saying all of these things that were not true and they knew were not true. We went through a wave of being told that it was fine to take off your mask, fine to go to big public gatherings, fine to eat inside crowded restaurants, go to football games, go to basketball games, go to every single event without a mask. And if that policy had not been instituted, I promise you, we would be so much farther in getting rid of COVID-19 right now. If everyone had stayed masked up, if everyone had continued to use hand washing and hygiene, if everyone had social distanced, if everyone had stayed home as much as they could, and if every school had stayed closed and gone virtual, we would be in a position where we might be able to see the beginning of the end of COVID. But we're not there now. And we're not there because our scientists and politicians failed us. Over the course of this year, we've organized within the teachers union and within the schools, first to try to get protocols put into place if schools were going to remain open, that included mandatory regular testing, that included mandatory vaccinations, that included implementing a policy of students and teachers and school workers being able to get effective masks, N95 or KN95 masks. And of course, we wanted anybody who was sick to quarantine and to stay at home, and anyone who was exposed to anyone who was positive to be able to quarantine and stay at home, to institute a policy of social tracing so that we could limit the spread of the virus. And the minute, though, that it became clear, first with the spread of Delta, and then in the beginning of December with Omicron, that we were entering a period of extreme, extreme danger, we just said, close the schools down, go to remote. The measures that we've been asking for, that we continue to ask for in those schools that remain open, they are inadequate to deal with the crisis that we are in now. And we need the schools shut down. This winter, coming out of the Christmas break, there have been a number of places where schools have had to be closed down because teachers have called in sick, parents have kept students at home, students have refused to go into school, and that has led to such low attendance that effectively whole school districts have had to shut down. But the biggest change was seeing the Chicago teachers go out on strike, and that was electrifying. It was great. And I just cannot commend the Chicago teachers enough. I feel like our problem with teacher strikes, both Chicago this year and teacher strikes in the last several years, is that if they're organized by the local elected leadership or by the national union leadership of AFT or NEA, they are going to be strikes that lose, that could win. There'll be far too many concessions made. There'll be an attempt to get teachers back as quickly as possible. There'll be a policy of teaching people how to lose instead of how to win. And I so admire the Chicago teachers. I'm so glad that that vote on the contract was so close. And I'm so glad that actions continue in Chicago because I know the teachers can win there. I know they can. They're up against one of the most treacherous mayors in the country, but they can beat her and they can win. And one of the things that was especially inspiring in Chicago was when teachers went back to work and there started to be student walkouts in Chicago. That just sent a message to all of us. Oh no, these teachers aren't done fighting. They're organizing now in the schools. They're uniting with their students. They're standing and fighting together. And that is exactly what needs to happen in order to win this fight. The walkouts have spread to many other schools. There have been strike actions and sick outs in many, many school districts. They've been organized efforts by BAMN, EON leaders to get sick outs and strikes to take place independently in many school districts that have been very, very successful. We need to continue to do all of what we've been doing because this is life or death. This is astounding to be in a society in which our leaders at every level of government have decided that what the American people need to do is get used to high death rates and accept it. To have leaders that have tried to demoralize us and lie to us, leaders whose main motivation has been to get the economy started, whatever the human cost might be. This is an outrageous situation. And it's like when you're fighting, when you're out there and you're telling the truth, you're swimming against the tide. But believe me, we've learned that you are speaking for millions and millions of people who will not submit, who will not say it's okay, that in a very short period of time, we're going to have 1 million people dead in America because of COVID-19. That no, this is unacceptable. We have to bring this era to an end. And the only way to do that is to take maximum precautions and for the movement to assert itself and make sure that we are in charge from now on of what COVID-19 policies will be in this country, because everyone else has failed, but we can win. So I just want to thank everybody for being here and turn things back over to Yvette.
Okay, thank you very much, Shanta. We're going to have more discussion. And so after our next speaker, which is going to be Neil Lyons, who is BAMN's COVID expert on the science behind the pandemic, but also the politics behind this pandemic, and also why BAM has the positions that we have in fighting for the demands that we're making. So Neil, I'm going to turn it over to you. And let me try to remove the spotlight from Shanta because somehow I still have it on. But Neil, why don't you go ahead? And I think it might switch to you. At least I'm hoping.
Trying to hog up the spotlight, Yvette.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. All righty.
Hi, my name is Neil. I'm just going to speak briefly on a few points of the science that I'm highlighting specifically because I want them to be useful to the people here who are organizing. And so all I want to cover is 3 points. I want to talk about 3 lies that are being told by policymakers and give you a sense of, okay, what the real truth is and how to counter those lies. So very kind of practical, need to know organizing stuff. And obviously there's a lot more lies than just what I'm going to cover, but I'm going to cover a few of them that are that just come up all the time from politicians, from school district administrators, and need to, we need to be able to fire back. Lie number 1 is we're doing something. We are taking action to keep people safe. We're doing this and this and this, and we have this requirement, this protocol, and we have a rubric, and this is one of those things like the environmental crisis. Everyone can say they're doing something and nothing is being done. Everything keeps getting worse. The most of what a school district is doing in their policies is just telling you enough, whatever they have to say, the minimum of what they could possibly do to convince people to come back to school so that the parents of the children can go to work and be making more money in the economy. You cannot take any of the public safety measures just by themselves, and you can't skimp on these things. And in the safety measures, we need to be talking about vaccines, masks, testing, contact tracing, quarantines, and subject of this meeting, shutdowns. These are not an either or proposition. All of these things are necessary. In many cases, a school district is only using so much in the way of masks or testing just to avoid having to do shutdowns. But that is a tactic that cannot be taken off the table. It's an essential thing. And just a few quick words on each of these. With vaccines, there is no excuse for vaccines not to be mandatory. For decades upon decades, it has been completely normal for students to need to be vaccinated for measles and mumps before attending school at all. And we have, abundant evidence, overwhelming evidence now, that being vaccinated makes a person many, many times less likely to be hospitalized and less likely to die from this pandemic. And if you ask any hospital worker, any healthcare worker, what their priority is for the public, vaccines are it, because that is what affects their hospitals the most. This is the measure that most greatly reduces hospitalizations and deaths by more than 90%. And what that means is the majority of hospitalizations and deaths from COVID, the vast majority of them, are preventable. There's no need for them to happen. It could have been prevented to begin with. So if a district administrator is not talking about mandatory vaccines for all, they are not serious about protecting human life. It is just such a simple, commonplace measure. If you have the opportunity to save hundreds of thousands of lives and you don't, where do you really draw the line between negligence and mass murder? This is such a basic thing. Masks. We now don't know that most cloth masks do basically nothing, but we have very good masks. The typical surgical mask, which is very cheap, is around 60 to 70% effective, but we could do much better than that. The very best mask is the N95, which is around 95% effective. And there are a couple other masks that are over 90%, which are the KN95 and the KF94. Those are very good. The N95 in particular for children comes in small sizes, child size masks, the best possible protection. So N95, KN95, KF94, those are in a class of their own. Those are the only things you can get that are more than 90% protective. Those should be available to everybody, and they shouldn't be optional. They are certainly more expensive than the typical surgical mask, but human life is worth that cost. It is worth paying for. Testing. We now know that with Omicron in particular, the virus has evolved to a point at which it is very hard for the rapid tests to detect Omicron. So if you take one of those really fast do-it-yourself tests, you can get a false negative very easily. And that is turning the rapid testing system into just a way of keeping stuff open and making it look like fewer people are sick. The tests that will accurately find Omicron the best are the PCR tests. It's where you get the nasal swab really high up in your nasal cavity and it's analyzed in a lab. And so if we're talking about testing, we need to be talking about effective testing, not the old, rapid tests that you can find in a grocery store, which were optimized for a previous version of the virus and aren't recognizing Omicron. So when we're demanding testing, we need to understand some of this testing is being used as kind of a fraud at this point. Contact tracing, quarantines, some of the most basic things, but then also just the essential thing that we're here to talk about right now, shutdowns. Before this pandemic occurred, just a few years ago, everyone knows what happened when a school has an outbreak of measles or mumps. The school closes down. It's so simple. This was like basic procedure, basic medical, best practice, just a few years ago, even though it feels like ancient history now. COVID-19 is much more dangerous than measles. It's much more deadly. And it is rapidly becoming more infectious with every new variant. This practice of being able to close things down, to get the situation under control has been universally rejected by politicians of both parties, by the district administrators, and we are going to be the only real force. Organized students, parents, teachers, community members. We will be the only real leadership to fight for this basic policy that has, been essential forever. If you have a deadly outbreak going through a school, shut it down. Stop the outbreak. Very simple. And all of those best practices in healthcare policy need to be on the table. You cannot say this or that. The Supreme Court, rejected Biden's vaccine or test policy for big business. And that was a terrible decision by the Supreme Court, but the policy itself was too weak. Vaccine or test, those are completely different measures. They do not accomplish the same thing. They are needed for their own reasons. And both vaccines and testing need to be mandatory as well as masks. You cannot just pick and choose which ones you like, which ones are most convenient, which ones are the easiest for getting people back to work. In that Supreme Court case, there were businesses that claimed that the vaccine or testing mandate would cost them billions of dollars. And that argument should have been thrown out of court because the vaccines cost nothing. The federal government already paid for all of that. They cost a school district nothing. They cost a business nothing. There is absolutely no excuse for anyone to fail having a mandate. This is just a simple question. Are you serious about keeping people alive? That's all it is. The fact that there has been such a universal failure to implement most of these measures is a sign that the real policy is to keep the money flowing, and that they are perfectly willing to sacrifice hundreds of thousands of lives if that's what makes the rich richer. And that's the crime that we're up against. Lie number 2. Cases are going down, the surge is over, we can all go back to normal. This has happened now multiple times during the pandemic. And part of the lie of this whole thing is obviously just pretending that evolution does not exist. Evolution has brought us wave after wave after wave of the virus, and will continue to do so until the pandemic is over. Pandemics do end, but it usually takes a long time. And the rule is it ain't over till it's over. The evolution of a virus follows a very simple pattern. The more it spreads, the more it creates mutations. The more it creates mutations, you have more diversity of the virus. And so you have more competition to see which variations of the virus are best at reproducing. And when something gets really good at reproducing and is an improvement, it's a new variant or a new strain. And so we have been through this multiple times. We had the original wave of COVID that began under the Trump presidency. Once that wave started going down, CDC said, cases are going down, everyone can go back to normal. That disarmed the public, leaving everyone vulnerable for the next wave, which was when we were hit by the Alpha variant. And that one came almost immediately after the original wave. And that was that really began in the very end of 2020, beginning of 2021. And when that subsided, the CDC committed the ridiculous crime of saying, we can all go back to normal. You can take off your masks if you are vaccinated. Everyone can go back to school, go back to life as usual, as long as you're vaccinated. That left everybody, including vaccinated people, vulnerable for the wave of the Delta variant. And they started sending people back to school in the midst of the Delta outbreak. And then when, Delta started moving down and they said, okay, well, this wave is over. So, as long as you're vaccinated and your family tests negative, go do your holiday vacations and meet up for Thanksgiving, meet up for Christmas. That disarmed everyone and left everyone vulnerable for now Omicron. And, this virus is looking a lot smarter than our public health authorities. The virus keeps changing, keeps getting better, and the authorities keep doing the same stupid thing, disarming the public and leaving us vulnerable for the next and the next stage in the evolution of the virus. And what that does is it allows the virus to evolve that much more rapidly. The more spread you have, the more transmission you have, the more evolution you have. And that puts all of us at risk, even those who are vaccinated, because it can allow the virus to evolve in a way that bypasses some of our vaccine protections. So this is just a lie that has to be confronted. Evolution does exist, and it ain't over till it's over. And we need to be, prepared to battle every single phase of this pandemic. And it will not be the same pandemic. It will not be the same virus from beginning to end. And we have to be able to respond accordingly. And the third lie and last point I'll make is kind of the obvious one. And it's the lie you hear every day. The schools are the safest place for our children to be. And you hear that on the news every day. We've covered this before, and I'll just run through some of the basics again. There are plenty of studies, and some of our previous stuff that we've put out, and even in our recent flyer, there's a reference to the study in the Journal of the American Medical Association. Closing down schools dramatically reduces the numbers of cases, the numbers of deaths, and the rate of transmission in the community as a whole. The study was published in JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association, showed that school closures reduces the numbers of deaths by 58% in what we've seen in the United States, and it reduces the number of cases by 62%. That's a reduction of more than half. And so it means our public health officials and school administrators know that when they are opening schools, they are doubling, more than doubling, the number of cases and deaths. They have health advisors who can give them this information. And when they are opening schools during a surge like we're having, and this is the biggest surge we've seen so far, they know they are dramatically increasing the number of people who die. That is about the most irresponsible decision any leader could make if you're responsible for anyone. And we are in a situation in which COVID is getting better at infecting children, and hospitalizations of children are at their highest. One of the symptoms that is particular with Omicron in children is called croup, which is a very distinctive cough and hoarseness and labored breathing. It has a recognizable sound to it. and also all the usual symptoms, loss of taste and smell, high fever, chest pain, fatigue, brain fog, none of which are good for learning, none of which are good for staying alive. This is many times more deadly than the flu in children. It is back in 2020, when we had versions of the virus that were not as good as infecting children, COVID was already the 7th leading cause of death in children in that year. And we can barely keep up with what are the implications for the Omicron variant, and overall in the United States, COVID is the 3rd leading cause of death for everybody, and for elderly people above a certain age, it's the number 1 cause of death. And okay, we know why these policies are so bad. We know in order to get parents back to work, you have to get kids back into school. This is about keeping the economy, running red hot. There's an article out today showing that during the pandemic alone, just during the short window of time, the world's 10 richest men doubled their wealth. And that is blood money. That was at the expense of hundreds of thousands of lives in the United States and millions of lives all over the world. And we are not going to sacrifice the lives of the nation's children, the nation's parents and teachers and everybody for the sake of helping those billionaires make more billions. This is an emergency. This is our time to fight. This is our time to lead. So I'm just going to conclude with that, covering those 3 lies. There's a lot more we can cover, but we have some organizing to do. So let's talk about that and talk about how to get these strikes and shut these schools down. So, thank you.
Great. Thanks a lot, Neil. So I want to open it up. I know that there are people on this in this meeting who I think everyone probably came to this meeting because they wholeheartedly agree with the points that Shanta and Neil have made. And so we want to then open it up for discussion for what we can do about this and how we can organize student strikes, parent strikes, teacher strikes, sick outs, walkouts, whatever you want to call it, but mass action to shut down these schools and save lives. So I know that there are some people who have already, some of our own BAM organizers who've been organizing sick outs to shut down the schools, who've successfully gotten their school districts shut down. And other people here who may have been part of organizing some of these already in your school district, or who, and I know probably everyone wants to find a way for us to organize it in our school districts. I know I'm one of them. So I want to open it up and ask first if Mark Airgood from Oakland could present on the organizing that we've done in Oakland and what's happened so far. And then Kate Stenvig in Detroit, and then we'll open up for other people too. So please feel free to raise your hand or write in the chat if you would like to be added to the list. Okay, so Mark.
Great. Hi, everyone. It's great to see everyone here. I'm Mark Airgood. I'm EON BAM in Oakland. I'm a special education teacher for 25 years, an OEA site rep, and now teaching virtually. I'm extremely happy that we're seeing the national movement of teachers, of students across the country, and seeing representation here. It's great. This is really a movement for our lives, and EON BAM has been leading it, and we have to lead it if it's going to be successful, and it can be successful. In Oakland, BAM has called for a sick out, called for action. We've been fighting since the very first day of the pandemic to close down face-to-face instruction. Just a few days ago on January 7th, 500 teachers in Oakland called in sick, even though there was no official action sanctioned by the OEA leadership. That gave students the confidence. They had already been circulating a petition calling for return to distance learning, and the teacher sick out really added to their confidence. There was a student sick out / strike on Thursday a few days ago that closed down virtually every high school and many of the schools across Oakland. They've been circulating a petition. They have over 2,000 signatures on that. And they are saying that they're moving forward, that next week will be continued walkouts and sick outs. I know the absence rate in Oakland, similar to Los Angeles, has been 30% approximately since the turn of the year. And because of all these actions, the independent actions, the union bureaucracy in Oakland, the OEA bureaucracy, has been forced to make a move toward calling a citywide safety strike. And of course, we totally support this. It provides us for a huge opportunity for organizing, but we have to go into this with our eyes open. The bureaucracies across the country, in Oakland and across the country, call these strikes in order to lose them. That's just the fact. Their goal is to put out the fire, to teach their membership that you can't win, all of which is false. To quote Dr. King on this day, we're not fire engines. We are not looking to put out the fire. We have to assert the independent leadership of EON BAMN. We have to keep moving. And I'll just say, there's a way in which I find our task very simple. It's not necessarily easy or simple to carry out, but we're facing a life and death struggle, literally, and we're facing a murderous policy by virtual every public leader and politician and school board out there. I'm glad we have an exception here in our meeting from Flint. But one, program. On our program, it's key. We've stood from the beginning for shutting down face-to-face instruction, return to distance learning. We have to do that now. It has to be for me, it has to be for the rest of the year. This is no sign of end yet. We need mandatory vaccine, which we raised in the NEA and AFT nationally, mandatory testing, masking with N95 masks and quality masks. And we need relief aid reinstated, federal relief, state relief for documented and undocumented families so that they can stay home safe. So program is straightforward. We know that's the only way to take on this virus. And in terms of action, we need students who are home, stay home. Parents who are keeping your children home, know you're doing the right thing, keep them home. Students and parents, tell other friends, families, acquaintances, keep the kids home, keep the students home, tell your friends, stay home, walk out, sick out, go virtual, demand to go virtual. Take all of the actions that we are seeing to end this murderous policy. First and foremost, don't go to inside instruction. As Shanta said earlier, 130,000 students did not attend school in Los Angeles since the turn of the year. There's a way to not attend school. A lot of people are finding it, and we have to have a leadership that encourages people to do that publicizes it. And in terms of the action, again, EON BAMN since the beginning has done the most kind of things that I know everyone in here does. We put up posters around the community. Don't, close the schools. Don't send your kids to school. We've had press conferences and interviews. We've had students, teachers, parents speaking in them, testifying in tribunals. We've had car caravans. We've spoken our rep councils and fought for resolutions to close down the schools. We fought nationally. We fought at our sites. It's what we know. I know people in this meeting know how to do this. The key thing is that we do it, and that we're independent, that we stand on the truth of what we know it's going to take to end this pandemic. And on that basis, we're really seeing results here in Oakland. I know we're seeing results around the country where we've been fighting, and we have to move forward. We have to move. We can't stop moving. We can win this, but it's up to us, completely up to us. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Mark. So I've got people from Detroit, Kate or Nicole. And Nicole, I see your hands up. And then after that, I've got Ruth. So Kate or Nicole, do you want to go next? And let me figure out how to remove the spotlight from Mark. Okay. Either Kate or Nicole, you should just unmute.
Okay, I think I can go. Am I on now? It's Nicole.
You are.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Nicole Conaway from Detroit, BAMN. And I said in my intro, I'm a teacher, a high school teacher here in Detroit. I said in my introduction that I just won a personal victory. I want to talk about that and put it in the context of Detroit. I have not been in a building for 2 years. Detroit, we were able to win last year at the option for all teachers and all students to remain remote. That was a huge victory in and of itself. And it was a result of the organizing we've done that Shanta talked about earlier of during the summer of 2020, being out every morning at 5 a.m. at the bus depots to block buses that were taking students to summer school. And that led to a victory in our lawsuit to demand testing. And then, so last year we had the option to remain remote. And then this year that went away, and part of that is definitely because after the election of Biden, it became the policy of the Democrats for all schools to be open. And of course, our, leaders, official union leaders here and school leaders here in Detroit are just, they just toe the party line. That's their job. That's what they do. And despite the desire of the teachers to fight, that was effectively shut down as far as winning an official option for everybody to remain remote. But there were still a lot of parents who, like Shanta said, just were not going to send their children to school. And a short anecdote that illustrates that. A teacher friend of mine, another teacher and EON BAM caucus member, was in a gas station just before schools were reopening and saw a mom with kids and, said, I'm a teacher. Do you mind telling me, how you're feeling about sending your kids back? She's like, my kids aren't going back to school. Like, are you crazy? This was, among the Delta surge, say Delta is for kids, she knew kind of this understanding of, what Neil explained in his science, in the science of it, that's how viruses evolve. That kids are next wherever it can replicate most efficiently. That's what it's going to do. And, with children not being vaccinated, that's what happened. And now we see Omicron even attacking kids even stronger. And again, I said Carrie had organized a sick out at her school. There have been several other schools earlier in the year where teachers and students organized sick outs and shut schools down for several days at a time, kind of, one by one, just refusing to accept, the lies being told. People weren't being told when there were cases. If there were cases, got a form letter, that's, oh, you don't need to do anything. You're fine. Yeah, there was somebody in your kid's class that has COVID, but that's okay. You can just come right back to school. Virtually no quarantining. Supposedly, they've been bragging and how Detroit's testing everybody. We're testing all students. What it really means is they they want a form on file that says students can be tested, but it's voluntary. Parents can opt out. In reality, very few tests are being done. Of course, now we know the tests aren't accurate either. So again, parents have made the decision schools are going to be shut down, and the district administration saw that, trend happening before Christmas break and knew they had to call for virtual. Otherwise, there would be like very small percentage of attendance. To get any school attendance, they had to offer virtual. So my personal situation within that is I started fighting at the beginning of the year for an ADA accommodation to teach from home, because parents did win the right to have some form of virtual. They had to open a virtual school program. They made it a separate program. It wasn't offered through the neighborhood schools or students' home schools, but they did win that for students to be able to stay home. And that was a really big deal. However, teachers put in that program were still required to report to a building and teach from school and share rooms with other teachers. And my personal health conditions, asthma and chronic, a cough variant of a persistent asthma and frequent respiratory infections and chronic cough, just made it too dangerous. And I actually had one doctor who was like, well, yeah, but it's, when I was asking for accommodation, it's really not up to me to decide. Yeah, I can tell them you have asthma, but it's for them to decide. So I found a new doctor, because if your doctor's saying anything like that to you, you need to find a new doctor. And luckily found a very good doctor who said, absolutely, you cannot be in school. You cannot risk exposure. In fact, two doctors, because I had a specialist also. And in fact, nobody should be in school. And so there are, some people, health professionals who will tell the truth and support us. And I share that because, we've won victories in different ways in different places. And, as our name says, by any means necessary, whatever it takes, I want to encourage everyone to do whatever you have to do to stay home and keep your children home. And so I have, a case going on in court. They threatened to fire me. We filed to get an injunction against that. So then they said, oh, well, we withdraw that. We're not going to fire you, but still wouldn't grant the accommodation, even though there's a virtual program that I could be teaching in. But I just, like Shanta said, sometimes it feels like, you're going against the current when you're out there telling the truth, and it's the truth, even though it's the truth. It's not just a current. Sometimes it's like going against the tide, it feels like, or like a tsunami, but the only reason I've been able to like resist that current is because I'm part of BAM and because I have this organization. So that's the other thing I want to say to everybody is join BAM. Join BAM so, you can have the support that you need to make that fight that you need to make, that you're trying to make. That's, but can't be done individually. We've got to do it together. And it's just been really like seeing the waves of student actions now. It has been like so reaffirming and re-energizing and reinvigorating and strengthening for me personally. And I know many of us too. And that is part of what makes BAM. That is what makes BAM different from other organizations as well. We're youth led, and we teachers in BAM understand that our students are our strongest allies. And the only way to win this fight is together.
Thank you very much, Nicole. Thanks a lot. Okay, so Ruth, you have your hand up. Thank you so much. Go right ahead.
Thank you. Yes, I wanted to share with this group because I am very concerned about what's happening in this country, especially since this pandemic has been taken over politically, when we should be listening to the medical, field. And so I was watching Martin Luther King's speech this morning, and I just want to share just one thing with this group, because this is what I feel that we need to do. When Martin Luther King said, whenever the Pharaoh wanted to prolong slavery in Egypt, he kept the slaves fighting. That was his formula, his favorite formula, separating. We have to stay together and maintain unity. And I want to follow Dr. King's advice, because I really believe that we need to come together in unison. One of these challenges I find here in my city is this division between, certain groups. And in my community, the Latino community, there's all this division because they hear something here and something there. And so, our community are really suffering because of it. And I just feel like I hope this group will consider, like if we could do a national movement just to come together and unite our effort so that our community can get the justice, that it deserves. And we need to stop this fighting among ourselves and try to, come together. Like Martin Luther King said, united, we can win anything.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot, Ruth. Okay, so I see Shanta and then I see Steve Kahn. So Shanta?
Thank you. I just wanted to intercede here because I know we've got a lot of people to hear from, and I know some people are going to have to go. So a couple of things that I think are really important. We would like to organize a national day of action. And for us to be able to do that, we need to have contacts and people who will spread the word all over the nation. We know from the George Floyd movement, this can be done. We know, and we know that when you do it, you can win against tremendous odds. So that is the first thing. We've heard that on Tuesday, there'll be sick outs potentially in Minnesota and Seattle. And if you're planning something like that, if you can get us that information ahead of time, we can make sure that there are other places that join you and go out with you. So I would just say to people, and for people who have ADA issues or legal questions or whatever, get them to us. I mean, being a member of BAM means taking a stand, building independent action, and fighting by any means necessary. And if that's in the courts, that's in the streets, if that's staying at home, whatever it takes, that's who we are. We don't have to join BAM. You don't have to, learn a secret handshake or, pay any dues or any of those things. You just have to maintain your will to fight. So I would just urge people to do that.
Thank you so much, Shanta. I've got Steve Kahn and then Laura McIntyre.
Yeah, this is Steve in Detroit. Shanta sort of got at what my concern is, which is concretely what can the people here do in the coming days and weeks, very specifically. And like our Detroit situation is that the district has shut for another week or so. There's clearly some level of division as to whether January 24th or 31st, they're going to go back. At least that's what their stated policy is, their stated position is. They haven't decided yet, but it's going to be one of those two dates, Monday the 24th or Monday the 31st, which seems way too early. I tell you right off, I'm not a person that sees that agrees with the idea of shutting down for the rest of the school year. I just don't see that. And I could make more of a point of that. I have in the past and could. But right now, yeah, we are in the middle of this wave, and it seems no good sense at all and quite evil to be trying to keep the schools open. But they're going to try to reopen the schools. So what concretely can we do as teachers, as students, as parents? And then what are other, because presumably there are other, I know there are other people in this meeting who the same, are in the same situation. Either the school is going to open, the district's going to open again, or it's already open and they want to do something. What concretely can they do? I really do like the idea of a national day of action. But we just need more concretes. I'll leave it at that.
Great. Thanks a lot, Steve. I've got Shanta, I think, who's going to respond to that. And then Laura, I'll call on you next.
Thank you. I mean, in the simplest thing I think to do as a start, if you're a teacher, is organize the teachers at your school to do a sick out, not to come back. The school's open on January 24th. Make sure the teachers aren't there. And if the teachers aren't there and they can get the word out to the students and the students' families, then they will be very supportive. In Detroit at Bates Academy, that was one of the leading places where teachers just did a sick out and they refused to come back. And the whole school had to go virtual. We are talking about changing a balance of power. And we have the power. We have the power because we, as long as we stay united and fight together, we represent the majority and we have the ability to change anything. So I think that that's one thing. I think another thing is to make sure that, Steve, I know that you teach at a high school that is a high school that has a large Latino population in it, and just getting material to students and to their parents saying, don't believe that, don't fear deportation. Like if you keep your kids home, don't fear that some truant officer is going to come by. Don't fear that something will happen to you if you're sick or somebody's sick in your family and you go to the emergency room. It will not. And because we know that school districts use those kinds of threats to get the most vulnerable students to be in school. And I think we can combat those. I know Yvette has some ideas, so I'll shut up there, let her talk.
Great, thank you. So I know that Laura and Saresta have your hands up, but I'd like us to vote first before we keep going with the speakers list, just in case people need to go. But I really think we do need to have like a national day of action, a national week of action this week, where we're calling on students and teachers and families to sick out, to walk out. If you're going to school, organize walkouts and don't come back. If you're already out of school, organize your friends and other people and urge them. Call in sick. It's time to get the school shut down. Don't go in. Organize other families to organize each other, people that you're in communication with. We need to be making this the week, because right now the momentum is on our side. And I just put a list of the ones that we know of walkouts or sick outs or like mass like boycotts of staying away, like LA, New York City, Boston, Seattle, Oakland, Redondo Beach, Manitoba, Canada, France. Hopefully our British sisters and brothers are going to be able to organize over in England. But this can and should spread. But this is the tipping point. We have a window of opportunity right now with all this happening, and we've got to push it and keep it open. So this is the week to make that happen. And so, I would like us to vote on holding like a whole national week of action this week of sick outs and walkouts and stayaways, car caravans, but making sure that people are not going into school and are organizing other people not to go to school and to stay out. So I'd like to take a vote on that first, and then call on Laura and then Saresta. We need the schools shut down now. So are there questions or comments on that first? And then Laura and Saresta, I will definitely call on you if you want to say anything to that. Then I also will take any questions or comments on that too.
And for people who, I think it's really important for people to get our program of demands. They're really simple in terms of the mandatory vaccination, testing, all of those things, because we need demands out there. And our first demand is shut down the schools, and that needs to happen. That's just a no-brainer. But I know that there are going to be places where people are going to wonder, is there a way to go back to school? And we have to lay down, as Neil said, what it takes to be safe. And it's nothing that is happening now. Here, I'm in Massachusetts right now, and students were given a test kit to take home before they came back to school the first day. What a joke. what was I going to accomplish? I mean, first of all, the test kit was going to give them a lot of false negatives, but also, what about day 2? What about day 3? It just, these things that are cosmetic have got to end. So we'll post those demands again, and hopefully we can get them spread in this National Week of Action.
Great. So these are our demands, and I should put the date here, which is January 18 to 21, but then ongoing from there. Hopefully we can keep it up. These are our demands on shutting down the schools immediately and providing remote learning services for all. As Shanta said, mandatory vaccination, mask use, high quality mask use, mandatory PCR testing, paid leave and expanded paid leave for families, and also ending the racist and second class treatment of minority and immigrant communities. So first I want to take a vote on holding a National Week of Action on these demands. And I'll leave this up, but if you have anything you want to say first that you haven't already said, please put your hand up. And then after that, we will take a vote. So Saresta, I see your hand up, so go right ahead.
Okay, here's my concern, and it's for Florida, not just Florida, but for the other states where we've had all these very authoritarian legislations passed. In Florida, no mask mandate. In Florida, no closing of school. In Florida, you can't even have sensitivity training. In Florida, you can't even teach true history. Now, all these things have been legislated into law. So these teachers, for the most part, are cowards. They're not going to organize. They're not going to walk out. They're not going to do the things that we would hope they would do to express. So when we're talking about days of action, can we have modifications for these folks who are really, really under authoritarian rule right now and really, really can lose their jobs? Because they're not going to do it. And I mean, as much as I've tried over the course of the years, they're not going to. They're even afraid to go ahead and teach the curriculum and what's in the textbooks that Governor DeSantis has now outlawed. So they're not going to be engaged in many of these activities. Can we have something that will legitimize their struggle, that will at least allow them to partake in something? I have a teacher friend right now in the hospital with COVID and pneumonia. No mask. These kids coming into school with no mask. They walk all over Florida with no mask. Nobody pays attention to everything. And that's why our death rate is so high. For proportionally, it's ridiculously high in comparison to the rest of the country. The kids in the hospital, it's high. Our hospital medical overwhelmed. Teachers are quitting in droves. Teachers are retiring in droves. We didn't have a good attendance record the first week after the holiday for either teachers nor students. So what can we do for these people that are really, really in a very compromised situation?
So Saresta, we've done things like car caravans, demanding that schools be shut down, demanding that the safety measures be taken. People are always and should continue to do those kinds of things too, and they can do that as part of the week of action. At the same time, the level of death and the level of anger now especially, and the fact that so many places, even Canada now, France now, are walking out around this policy. If there's a time for Florida teachers and students to take that sick day all on the same day,
Exactly.
Then, this is the time.
This is the time, but it's so hard to get them. I mean, look what we're dealing with here as governor. I mean, they allowed this man to walk all over all of their democratic principles and freedoms. Yes. And a lot of them love him for doing it.
And a lot of these demonstrations will in part be against him, which is what it should be. But they can do things like car caravans and all of that too. But as many who can call in sick, who can like refuse to show up. This you either, sick out or get sick, right? Like that's one of the slogans in Oakland. And I really agree with it. Like take action now. So thanks, Resta. Okay, Elsie.
Can I say something? Oh, I'm sorry. Can I be next after the last person is speaking? I'm sorry. You can put me in line. I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah.
I apologize.
That's all right.
I apologize for cutting in.
Not at all, Lou. Elsie and then Lou.
Hey, I'm sorry about that. All right, I'm back in. I just wanted to kind of stay on that fact, what we're on right now in regards to how we have to motivate the others. For years in Detroit, things that we had to fight for. I couldn't wait for everybody to agree. I couldn't wait for all the people to want to come together. And what I could not do, thank God for that, I couldn't lower my standards of how we were going to fight. Because see, once you do that, you're trying to bring it down to where they can meet you. And what we need to do is continue to raise it up to where we need people to go and where to be. We look at our movements over the decades, how people have fought, even how, my parents, my grandparents would tell me how they fought in Birmingham and when before anybody would come there, and they had to motivate even those leaders to show up and saying what we want to do. Because a lot of people wouldn't do it because they were worried about their jobs. They were worried about the antagonists. They were worried about people attacking them in their homes. So they said, hey, you know what? We're going to go to them. And they went on main streets. They went to the diners where it was seeming to be crazy to do. Why would you do that? But they knew the effects it would have on the public seeing it. Even if it was just a few, they knew that the effects of with others seeing what happens to them just standing up for their rights and the rights of people all over this nation, it changed the volume. It made a wave. It's the little ripples in the water that add up to those great waves that we see that meet on shores. The same thing happens with social justice. It's those little ripples. And so above all, I'm with you, Standing. We have to get it going nationally. Let's do it together. Let's unite. And even like she said, even in Florida, if it's a few of you, keep standing because we're standing with you and we're going to fight. Show them videos from our fight. Show them what we're doing together because we're not doing this alone. Just like Nicole said earlier, you're not doing this alone. I'm not doing it alone. Even some people you don't even see on this line here. But when it's time to fight, they'll do it silently and they'll stand with us. They'll stand with me. And that's all it took. It's just a few of us to say, that's it. It's enough. We're not fighting what's popular. We're not fighting because it's safe. We're fighting because it's right. It's the right thing to do, and it's the right time to do it. And so, yeah, I'm with you. Let's get it going. Amen.
Great. Thanks, Elsie. I've got Lou, and then I see Laura. I'm sorry, Laura, I cut you off before, but now you added your hand. So Lou and then Laura.
I want to thank you for that. I can tell you right now that our union is very weak. And a lot of them, we talked about going back to distance learning. Even our principal said to don't get the students scared because we may be doing that. Our union, the president, said that the legislature and our governor is against that. So he is not looking at distance learning. So a lot of changes I tried to make, and I agree with the lady in Florida. It's very hard. I do agree with the gentleman. If we can get 2 or 3, then I'm going to get 2 or 3 to help me. But we are a very weak union, and I have tried to fight to make changes. And it's been a real slow process, a very gradual process just to do that. I have made just one little change, but it took me fighting for 4 years to get that change in this union. So they're kowtowing to the governor, and they won't speak up. We have an executive director who kowtows to everybody, and everybody kowtows to her. So it's a struggle. It's a real struggle over here. But I do have friends who are outside the union that I know would be willing to help me with signs. And if it's only 4 or 5 of us, we can post it on social media to let people know that we don't agree with this. I just got over COVID. Another teacher got over COVID. And what they're doing right now in our district is they started Thursday handing out kits for a 15-minute test for kids to take home. But it's on the honor standard. And like our principal said, what do we know if they give it to somebody else and they come out negative and our kids are positive? We don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. The only thing she said is that they will not allow anybody on campus who tests as positive. And if they haven't picked up their test kit Thursday or Friday, then Tuesday when we start back, we have kits for them and they won't be allowed until we see the results. So there's just a lot of stuff going on. Teachers are asking a lot of questions and it's hard to get them to fight. It really is because our union has been so passive. The teachers have become the same way. And I have spoken out about it, a lot of different things. And because of that, a lot of teachers don't talk to me, but I think that's good because it tells me I'm making an impact. It tells me that I'm touching somebody's mind, that I'm making them start thinking. And the ones that will talk to me have agreed with me on the issues that I've stood on. So yes, with this thing that we're planning this week, I'll start making my signs. And if I get 2 or 3, I'll stand out in the corner with that. Thank you.
Great. Thanks a lot, Lou. So I got Laura, and I just want to say people should please say then what you can, like think about and share what you can get to organize and to happen in your school district. Like what you can do to get a group of people together. If it's inundate the school boards, and Laura can say more about this, and the superintendent to stay closed or to close. It's car caravans. If it's sick outs, it's walkouts, you name it. So Laura, go right ahead, please.
Oh yeah, thank you. I was going to say something like along the lines of what Nicole was saying. So I don't want to backtrack the conversation. I kind of want to move it forward, but I do want to kind of do 2 things, like show how much this group means, because just this 1 year ago today, or this, at this time last year, I was like a newly elected school board member, and I was like the lone voice in the wilderness, speaking out against so many things. From Flint, Michigan, we're going on year 8 of a water crisis. We still don't have safe, clean, affordable drinking water in the midst of a global pandemic. And, it's you don't realize how much your one voice can matter. I told Yvette on the phone that I ran on the No Fucks campaign. And because I was just, I've just been outspoken all my life. And I was so glad to meet with EON BAM. I believe it was at the 2016 convention in Minnesota. And it's, what do you call a long time listener, first time caller kind of thing. I look to you guys and I'm a part of you as well. I'm EON BAM member, but it's so inspiring to see everything that everybody's doing and to know you're out here and you can feel alone. You can feel like you're just, it's daunting. It's daunting because there's just so many naysayers and and often you don't know that you're getting the support that you're getting. So almost every week I'm up in front of TV cameras on a stage, just speaking out against these things. And it's like crickets, right? I hear a lot of negativity, but the ripples that have come back just in this past year, I was the one voice last year, demanding that the schools stay shut down. And this year, the schools are shut down, right? So there's going to be talk. We have a meeting on Wednesday, going to be talk of this sort of mealy mouth, we should reopen. It's for the best of the students. I'm going to be back in, on that stage speaking out again. And I'm in a bigger position of power, right? And I've built a coalition, not just with EON BAM, but we have the Flint Democracy Defense League. We've got tentacles, right? And so a group like EON BAM just helps solidify and reinforce these things at the local level. The school board is completely changed from last year. We had 2 horrible conservative members resign. We've got a new board member. We're standing up against the Mott Foundation. We're following with an investigation of embezzlement that goes back to 1990s. We've fired the city, not the city, the school board attorney, all sorts of things just because of, you never know where these ripples are going to start. And so, you know, I was telling you that, and Nicole, I love you too. Like, I channel my inner EON BAM whenever I go out there, because it's like, you know, armor, and you may not have the, you know, somebody like right there immediately next to you, but we've got these connections. And so I just wanted to put that out there. And I don't want to derail the conversation from what can we do right now, immediately, like with a week of action and things like that. But just know, just the example from Flint, you know, I got on the school board, I got elected treasurer, and start locally, and just, we've got these connections. Let's tighten these connections and do, you know, a lot more groundwork together. So solidarity, and thank you for this group. I wouldn't be able to do it without you. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Laura. So what I'd like to do is I'd like us to take a vote. Thank you, Ronald, for typing in our demands in the chat, so that way I don't have to keep sharing my screen. That we called for a week of action starting tomorrow through Friday for people who can organize with students for walkouts, or organize a core of your fellow coworkers, and or with parents for sick outs, for a car caravan, if you can organize that, to inundate the school district, the superintendent, the school board, to tell them shut down now or stay shut down and don't even think about reopening, but to find ways to organize with whatever core of people you've got. So Lou, you and the core of people you've got, if you'll call in sick and stand on like a busiest corner of the city holding up signs, great, do it. You can invite some parents or some media to come and join you, and students, even better, but do what you can, how you can, but do it and keep doing it as often as you can. This is really the tipping point. And please feel free to share, like, I can email everyone. Please make sure we have your email if you're not sure if we do. And re-email out like all the videos and the news articles about all the walkouts and the sickouts and demonstrations and how it's spreading internationally. This is the time to do it. Okay. So really, thank you to everyone. So first, I'd like to take a vote, and then if people want to chime, like keep speaking after that, great. And then also, before I forget, we need to set another meeting so we can check in from how things went this past week for next week, for either Saturday or Sunday. So let's decide that after we vote on holding a week of action on BAM's set of demands. So I'm going to call the vote, unless there's anyone else who wants to say anything.
The fuck.
Okay, so we're going to do this voice vote. I like to do that. So please unmute. So unmute now. So all in favor of calling week of action this coming week, starting tomorrow through Friday, on the basis of BAM's demands to shut down in-person schools immediately, provide remote learning resources for all, for mandatory vaccination for all students and staff and employees, mandatory mask use, the district providing high quality N95, KN95, or KF94 respirators, mandatory PCR testing and contact tracing, expanded paid leave, economic assistance for parents and families to support their children's ability to learn remotely, and to end the racist second-class treatment of minority and immigrant communities, and full resources and rights for health care, regardless of documentation or status. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Any opposed? Please say nay. Any abstaining? Please say abstain. All right, good work, everyone. That is unanimous. Excellent job. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And then let's set a date for another meeting. So I just want to figure out what's a better day for everyone that we meet again. I think at this time, just to keep it consistent, I would say Saturday, just because that's like the day after the end of our week of action. And so things are fresh, and that way we still have Sunday to keep organizing, or the rest of Saturday and the weekend to keep organizing if we need to for the following week. And so I'm wondering if that would work for everyone. So please raise your hand or turn on your video and raise your hand if you don't know how to do it in little Zoom hand. If you can meet again Saturday at this same time, 10 a.m. California, 1 p.m. East Coast. And that's also 6 p.m. British. Okay. And then that looks like a bunch of hands. So good. I see a bunch of hands that are not raised, but that's all right. I mean, if you can't, then you can't. So that's all right. Okay, I see hands that are raised physically. Okay, thank you. You can put your hands down. Who here could not make it Saturday at that time, but who could make it Sunday if we did it the same time Sunday, 10 a.m., 1 p.m.? So, okay, so I see a few people. I don't know if people have their hands up from before. Please lower if it otherwise, but otherwise I see a few people who said Sunday's better than Saturday. Okay, so it looked like way more people are available on Saturday. So let's meet again Saturday at this same time on this same Zoom link. If it's not possible, then we'll send you out the new one, but I think we can repeat it. Please make sure that you have gotten us your contact information. Even if you think we have it, put it in the chat again, just in case. Even if you've got an email or a text message, put it in just in case, because it's good to back up our information. Are there any other things people want to raise, or questions you have, or ideas that you're wondering about, so we can help you and support you however we can to make sure that whatever you're organizing and do this week, that it's as successful as possible?
Yeah, if there are any students, or if Kate, you could talk about organizing at the high schools and organizing students, I think that'd be really great.
This is Ronald. The flyer that was circulated to publicize this tribunal, I can modify it, but it would be great if it could be shared with folks, so that it advertises the week, because that flyer is really good at, distributing to spread the word about it. You can even send it to local press to let them know there's a week of action going on, and, with your friends and coworkers.
Great. Other people, Kate, I don't know if you're able to unmute or not. Okay, I don't think Kate is able to unmute. Okay, I've got Adam and then Saresta.
Oh, no, I was raising my hand from earlier. Sorry.
Okay, great. Saresta?
Yeah, this meeting that just hosted here, it's recorded. Can you get that link out as soon as possible? I've got people asking to see it.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay,
thanks a lot. And please share this information with everyone after, share the call to action with everyone after, and having people come to the next meeting on Saturday. That'd be great.
Saresta, just on what you were saying in terms of Florida, this is the one time that you can call in sick and no one can question it, even if they want to, and no one can ask you to get a doctor's note, because that is impossible to do.
Shanta, this is what I'm trying to impress upon these people. It's like Floridians have just laid down and given up. This man has stripped us of complete democracy. We are under the authoritarian rule in this state.
Yeah.
Already, if we try to go out and have any dissent, somebody can run us down and kill us, and they can do it with impunity. We can't even organize any dissent in the street at this point without suffering some sort of reprisal. He stripped us of everything. We cannot ask students to put masks on inside our school buildings. We can't, if you're a company down here, you cannot ask your employees. You see how even the cruise industry, He wouldn't allow them to have vaccine mandates for any ships sailing out of Florida. This thing is, and we have the worst death rate proportionally in the country. It's the worst. Right now, we have almost a 40% positivity rate. People are sicker than dog. People come to Florida and they're going home sick. But you've got all these right-wing, racist people down here that support those efforts, even though a lot of them are dying too. So it's almost like Florida has just laid down and given up on any vestige of democracy whatsoever. And the teachers are quitting in droves. We're understaffed here. And the teachers are getting sick in droves, as well as the students. I have one friend that works for the school system. She's lost to death 21 family members.
Oh my God.
21, all ages. So I'm trying to rile them up right now on a website, and well, maybe we can do a car caravan. Maybe we can. This is what I'm dealing with here.
So I've got a question on that. When in 2020, Florida led the way in terms of opposing what the governor was doing. And there's a lawsuit that was brought by a number of organizations, including the teachers union. What happened to that coalition, or how can it be rebuilt? Because that stopped the first wave of these attacks by the governor. And it seems to me that
what happened is a lot of those were executive order mandates, right? Well, since he has made them state law, they're now written into state law. Okay, they're now a part of the Florida legal law. They've acquiesced now that he's taken it out of executive order status and put it into state law status. So this school year, when the positivity rate increased, went up exponentially, and people started getting sick in large numbers and stuff, they accepted the no mask mandate. They just turned over. They fought it initially. Yes, they did. But they just laid down and nobody protested. One of the leaders of Florida State administrators, our superintendent, Alberto Cavallo, is now headed out to LA. He's going to be experience a completely different world in LA. But he acquiesced. And I think when he acquiesced, a whole lot of other school districts have acquiesced. But you've had to have schools in Florida actually forced to shut down because people are sick, really sick. Staff, they didn't have bus drivers, they didn't have administrators, they didn't have teachers. So in certain schools, they have had to go ahead and shut down. They had no recourse. But yet, nobody's fighting even to get a mask mandate for the students in the schools. Nobody's even fighting for that anymore. I'm telling you, I'm at wit's end. That's why I went on and retired. I said, I retired because I couldn't deal with the fact that the educators would not stand up and fight for any right whatsoever. I didn't even want to work with them anymore because it was so depressing and so disgusting that you see people dropping like flies all around you, all age groups. But you won't even fight to get mandated masks for students coming into the schools. They won't even fight for that.
So this is why we are holding this tribunal and why we're having our week of action next week, because too many people have been feeling like they can't fight, especially when they see like the national, opposition, so-called opposition leadership telling everyone that the schools are supposed to be open, coming from the top of the federal government. Like that's, but despite that, we are seeing now, the students and the people sicking out and walking out, like Chicago really broke it open. And so I really want to urge everyone, for people who are working with students now, who have kids in the schools, Tell them to organize, like arm them with the information, urge them to take action this week, tell them to organize their friends. The Chicago teachers strike kind of gave some cover to the students to take action and to take up the banner, even after the teachers felt too beholden by their own sellout bureaucracies. And then the students fighting and walking out is then giving more teachers more cover to take more action too, rank and file teachers, even up and against the cowardice or the betrayals of their own leaderships in the union. And so it's really, that's why we exist. That's why we're so glad that everyone is here. And that's what we're here to support each other in order to do. So organize with the people you've got, get a core together, do what you can. If it's like sending out emails, sending out messages to the school boards or superintendents, if it's holding a picket or a rally on the corner or car caravans, but also if you can sick out and call in sick, you can do that. Everyone has a right to do it. In my district, everyone has a right to take a personal day without having to give a reason why, or take a few of them. And do what you can to do something public. And if you're organizing with students or can, talk to them about organizing and mobilizing each other to stay home, to strike, and to walk out if they're being forced to go to school and to leave. So I've got one more person who got their hand up. So Neil, and then I think we're going to wrap it up after that. So Neil, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that I think Laura was also making a point along this line that there's a long-term perspective to what we're doing as well that can really be set in motion over the course of this week. We are seeing, like, even just in the teachers' unions, the thing that everyone has commented on is how weak their union is and how much it's just serving to, send people back to school. In our organizing, we can be recruiting more and more teachers to the EON BAM caucus and transforming these unions from the inside out. Yeah. And recruiting either to the EON BAM teachers caucus or recruiting students to BAM is by far the easiest thing. It's the easiest part of all of these tactics. Regardless of a person's situation, even if someone is stuck at home for medical reasons, you can bring in new people to be organizing, and those students who are doing the walkouts, if they remain isolated, isolated student leaders and organizers, we know that their schools will put pressure on those individuals, and there will be, Florida is a state full of, repression and, repression on teachers, repression on students. But if we are recruiting people to organizations, they cannot suppress our organization. It's totally different to have an isolated individual as opposed to a nationwide, well, actually an international group. We have our international allies on the call with us. And if we are recruiting new people over the course of this week, we will be that much stronger for everything else we need to do. And, and we should see every action we're doing as being not just a thing in and of itself, but a chance to make us stronger for every next phase of the fight. And so for all of the things we are, rightly frustrated with, all the weakness of the union officials and the terrible leaderships and, the kind of isolation and passivity that people are in, the more we pull people together into one group, the more we, unify as the one teacher was saying in her point. The more we do that, the more we will be the people saying, this is what the policy is going to be, and we're not giving you any other choice. So, recruit as you organize, and keep making every new BAM event a bigger event. That's all.
Great. Thank you very much, Neil. Okay, I think with that.
I'm sorry, Yvette. I just want to say one thing. And not to keep harping on this, but I do think teachers are, from what I'm hearing, they're kind of thinking like in the old mode, like, oh, if I call in sick, then I'm going to have to prove that I'm sick and all that stuff. That's out now. That is not going to happen. A lot of the teachers, first of all, are sick, right? And so there isn't, it just isn't what it used to be. We have to exploit the situations that we have. In Detroit, parents are being told that their sons and daughters will not be able to return to in-school learning unless they sign a waiver for their sons and daughters to be tested. And everybody's like, don't sign the waiver, we'll stay virtual. And it's just really, anyway, it's just using the reality of what we have to win. And these school boards will back down. They will back down.
Thank you. Thanks. So unless there's anyone else who wants to say anything, I think that's a great. Oh, is that Ruth?
Can I just one thing for us to think about? You think that it would be helpful if we had a meeting with the Secretary of Education?
He is 100% committed to keeping the schools open, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't be making demands on him. And that's for sure.
He needs to hear from teachers because I don't think he has.
Yeah, I think if we can do as much as we can to keep things going, he might be forced to meet with us. We just got to do what we got to do. And then a lot of these people are going to try to meet with us. And if they don't, they don't, because we shut down the schools. That's the most important thing we can accomplish. All righty. But thank you very much, Ruth. So I think without any further, I want to thank everyone. Please take this meeting to heart, share the link to it, share the information about next week's day of action, and also make sure that you recruit more people to EON BAM and that you join us again next week on Saturday. So Saturday at 10 a.m., 1 p.m., and use the same Zoom link. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone.
Everybody, thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
We can fight and we can win.
Yes. All right. Thank you. See you.
Bye,
Keep the fight up.
everyone.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you for coming.
Bye.